Well, hello and welcome to the Primal Hummingbird Garden. My name is Angela Freebird. I am the Primal Hummingbird. Welcome. Today we are going to talk about astrology transits, and we're going to basically do a little bit of astrology 101. So let's dive in. I've got slides. Where's my slides? Okay, here we go. So we're going to talk about what is a transit. Don't worry if you have no idea what I'm talking about. I am going to break it down. I want to just spend a little time talking about how astrology actually works and why 2026 makes it worth watching this video just to learn a little bit more about it. As mentioned, my name is Angela Freebird. I am an astrologer. I'm also a tarot reader. I have been a habit strategist for the last 20 some years because I've been a personal trainer in the gym, all things strength, for about almost 30 years now. And people come in, they want to get stronger, and then they say they want to do something, eat healthier, stop drinking wine, do all these things, and then they don't do that, and then I wasn't doing that. So I was like, hold up, what is this thing that makes us stick or break or create new habits? So I've been obsessed with habits for decades, literally. And when I say obsessed, I mean obsessed. Now I'm obsessed with astrology because that's another level of getting better at habits. I digress. This is Lucky. He owns me. I own him. He's my partner in crime. That's us. Okay, so that's who's talking to you. I'm also an eating psychology coach. I've been in the business of helping people make sustainable changes for a really long time. And as glamorous as that sounds, and I don't know if it sounds glamorous, but the reason is because I've needed so much support in figuring out why don't I do what I say I want to do. So, learning a little bit about the language of astrology is useful. You do not have to speak astrology. I can go in. I have a favorite mechanic I live in Ketchum, Idaho. I have a favorite mechanic. I can go in. I can hear what they're saying. They can break it down. I don't need to know how to fix the engine. I just need to know here's what we recommend. Here's some ideas. I don't need to know the ins and outs of how certain things are fixed. I just need to know the right person to help me figure out and to come and do it. When you go to a foreign country, it's nice to speak the language, but a lot of us want to go travel and we don't speak all the languages. It's helpful to know certain phrases. Where's the bathroom? How do I call a cab? When can I get another margarita? So I want to just do enough with this astrology that you can do some simple phrases and some simple understanding. The other thing I was thinking, it's like, you know how you go to a foreign country and you just have to know how to use your phone enough to use Google Translate now. I mean, how miraculous is that? So the idea behind this video is to explain enough about transits and how the birth chart works that you can basically access, oh, this is happening. I can use this information in a practical way. Okay? So, that is the point. That's what we're doing here together. Let's go back to the slides. Okay, so yes, my mission, and I do have a mission. I love astrology. I want to help people make sustainable changes. I want to be able to live a life that feels meaningful and rich and joyful. And so this is my mission, is to help make astrology actionable. There we go. I got that. Okay, so first off, I'm going to take a breath and slow down. Oh, yeah, that's better. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the birth chart and what that means. Here we go. We have this Lady Gaga. You've probably heard of her. She's kind of an amazing singer. This is her birth chart. This is a public record. I didn't get to talk to Lady Gaga to ask for permission, but fortunately she's online. So, when Lady Gaga took her first breath, this is where the planets were in the sky. So let me just give you the briefest overview. Again, like just kind of take it in like, oh, hold up. You don't have to know what all these symbols mean. All I want you to do is just to understand, get a picture of oh, that's what my natal chart could look like. When she was born, the sun was overhead in the sky in Manhattan. She was born almost 10 o'clock, 9:53 a.m. The sun was overhead right about here in the sign of Aries. Okay? So she is what you would say she's an Aries. So she is. She has a sun in Aries. She also, here, the moon was down below the earth, down here, and that was in the moon was traveling through the constellation of Scorpio. So she has a Scorpio moon. So she's not just an Aries, she's an Aries with a Scorpio moon that's sitting by Pluto. See what I'm throwing down here? So we're so much more than just our sun sign. And this language of astrology, all these complex symbols and where they are speak to some of the, we can predict some of the energies, some of the archetypal energies that you're going to be dancing with this life. Okay. Now, astrology does not tell you what to do. There are different ways and different times that these archetypes are going to come through. So it's not a this is what you're going to be, but this can start to explain the complexity of it. Okay. There's one more really important point on this because if you've done any social media astrology, you're going to be like, well, hold on. There's one more point that most people talk about that you've probably heard, and that is what's your rising sign or what's your ascendant. And what that means is what was the where when you look at the eastern horizon, when you look at the eastern horizon, what was the constellation behind that if you were to go all the way out to the stars? And for Lady Gaga, as the horizon's moving, all the planets are moving this way, it was Gemini rising, okay, by a few degrees. Now, if she would have been born, an hour later, she would have been Cancer rising. So the wheel spins like this, and it's in relationship to Earth. Actually, Earth is spinning, but let's not go into too much astronomy and make it even more confusing. So if you're a little lost, please stay with me. Hold on. I'm gonna get a little bit. I'm gonna bring it in. I'm gonna bring it in. Okay, so when I made these slides, it was February 21st, 2026. They're in a different spot now, and I'm going to show you on the wheel where we are right this minute. However, this is a snapshot of the sky on February 21st, 2026 at 1:49 p.m. where I live in Ketchum, Idaho. So at that point, it was the sun was over here and it was passing through the constellation of Pisces. So it would be a Pisces sun. We're in Pisces season. And then all these other planets are showing where they were in relationship to the constellations in the sky. Okay. And at that moment in time, Jupiter was almost ready to come up over the eastern horizon. Jupiter rising, Cancer, Jupiter rising on a Cancer rising. Okay, Jupiter's coming up, so it's both. So if someone would have been born at this time, that would be their natal chart. It's also the transits of the time. Does that okay? Now don't worry, we got more. We got more. Let me give you another example. Another singer you might have heard of, John Lennon. So when he was born, October 9th, 1940, at 6:30 p.m., the sun had just lowered over the western horizon. So he actually was born when the sun was below the horizon, the moon was up above, and his sun was in the sign of Libra, excuse me. So John Lennon was a Libra. He was a Libra, and he had a moon. The moon at the time he was born was in the sign of Aquarius. So he's not just a Libra, balance and beauty and connected to art. He also had an inner emotional state of an Aquarian, a moon in Aquarius. What's Aquarius? Aquarius can speak to the energies of being connected to community, but wanting to stand out, having an alternative way of looking at things. Aquarius is connected to the visionary archetype. Okay. So we're not going to do a full read on his chart, but you can start to see where, interesting. This is so much, there's so much more going on than just he's a Libra, right? Okay. Now, I'm going to do multiple videos and you can find those on the channel. Okay. So I'm not going to do a ton here, but I also just want to do a little bit of an entry about what are these planets. The planets that are in the chart, you can think of them as actors on the stage, the chart being the stage, characters, or the energies. Okay. So here are some of my favorite superhero actors. Very nice. You'll recognize some of those guys. So they have a particular energy that they bring, right? Then we get into the signs, the Aries, the Taurus, the Scorpio, the Aquarius, the Pisces. Okay, you've heard of most of the zodiacal signs. Those are like the costumes or the style. So if we go back and we think about the planet, let's just say for the sake of just using a metaphor here that Robert Downey Jr. is Mars. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's always Mars, it's always Robert Downey Jr., but he wears different clothing styles and shows up in different ways and takes different actions depending on the style of clothing. He could be let's see, when he's playing Sherlock Holmes, he's maybe more on the Sagittarius side. When he's doing his, got the warrior stuff on, he's maybe more Aries. It's the clothing. It's always Robert Downey Jr., but he's wearing these different styles. Okay. And then, of course, we have to make a nod to Scarlett Johansson because amazing, right? And so, again, it's her. We know it's her, but she has different energies that she brings out depending on the style. Okay. That's one of my little metaphors. You can see that works for you. Okay. We would love the next slide. Thank you. So here's another, just some pictures. I love pictures are good, right? Pictures are nice. We can kind of feel into pictures. We can kind of relate to pictures. So the archetypal energies, and these are very small little snapshots. There's so much complexity to all these zodiacal signs. They speak to these energies that we all are familiar with. Aries is going to be somewhat connected to a warrior, right? Heroic. Taurus to the happy animal, to peace. And I love to think about Ferdinand the Bull. I don't know if anyone watching this knows that reference. When I was a kid, there was a cartoon, Ferdinand the Bull, and he would sit and smell the flowers. Okay. Gemini is the curious child. Cancer is the nurturer. Leo, put me on the stage, baby. Virgo is the alchemist. Libra, the diplomat or the peacemaker. Let's see, what else do I have up here? We've got Sagittarius is the adventurer. Pisces is connected to the mermaid. We've got Capricorn is going to look for and climb a mountain. We've got Aquarius again, out space, out of this world ideas, visionary, forward thinking. And then, of course, our beloved Scorpio here. So, those are just some pictures to sort of start you thinking about these different styles. Now, there's one more part in the birth chart that's just worth mentioning so we can understand transits. We're going to get back to transits, don't worry. But it's the houses, and that's where the action is. So, there's going to be empty houses. So when and if you decide to pull your chart or you have someone like an astrologer like me, I'll do it. I love it. Pulling your chart, there'll be some houses that are empty. That does not mean that you won't have action there. But where there are planets, the actors, the energies, there's going to be more of juice, more life lessons, more energy there, even more struggles or just more attention there. Um, we can really speak to that as we start talking about basically the energies that you were born with and then how the planets are connecting to those energies as they move. And again, I'm going to get to more of that. Hold tight, hold tight. I'm getting ahead of myself because I get so excited about this. I just okay, so here's Cher. I think I had a thing for singers and superheroes on this when I made these slides. But who doesn't love Cher? um so when Cher was born, we're going to start recognizing two of the symbols that I'm pointing out. The sun was in Taurus. So the sun was over here. It was above the horizon. Here's the horizon. She had Cancer rising. Yes, because the eastern horizon was pointing at the sign at the constellation of Cancer. And then she had her moon in hardworking Capricorn over here. So, um, earthy, actually. Interesting. Um, so what I wanted to point out with the houses, see these numbers on the inside? These are talk to the different areas of life that are represented. The house of self, the house of your personal resources. I'm not going to go through them all. I will do a video on that for you for sure. House of important relationships. But here's the 10th house, which is where you're going to be seen publicly. And it's very connected to career. Um, it can or cannot, it doesn't have to be where you make money, but it can be. And her house is empty. And Cher has certainly had a magnificent and been very visible. So this, I wanted to use her as an example that just because you have an empty house does not mean there's not going to be things that happen there. Okay. So don't read into that. Um, and again, the different houses, all of these houses, I just thought I'd put some more pictures, people, more pictures. Um, all of the houses can have a different styles, but there's still most likely a living area, there's still a bathroom, probably a kitchen. So they all of our the houses in our astrological charts, we all have these things that we will deal with, but they'll be different styles, right? So just like this, like even this guy, I have a big camper and even it has, a little living space and a bathroom, which I use as a closet, but still. Um, okay, so here's another little grid just of how the houses are divided. I'll do another video on that. Don't need to know too much more about that now. Final piece on the birth chart. Stay with me. Hopefully you're doing okay here. There are relationships between the planets. So there are planets that are right beside each other. That's called a conjunction. That's a blending. They're right beside each other. Okay. There is a square, which is a 90-degree angle. Okay. And that is, and I'm going to show you some examples. There's not going to be a quiz. We're just doing enough that you can figure it out with your Google Translate here. Um, a square is a 90-degree angle. That's going to feel like friction, like something's going to happen. I always think like you want to do this, but you think you're going to need this, but you get a flat tire on the way. Like there's literally something that's like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Duh. That's a square. And one of my favorite astrologers, Caroline Casey, says she loves the squares the most because that's where the action is. So there you go. There's the opposition, which is really going to hold the paradoxical energies. Okay, lots to say about paradox, but that's basically the opposition. The quincunx is going to feel like a teeter-totter. And I left this slide this way, even though it's a little bit looks like a typo. It is, but it's kind of the way it is. Like they don't see each other. It feels like this. No, like that. No, like that. No, like this. I need to do this. No, I really need to do this. And this is one of the ones that has caught my attention because I am gonna do this. Nope, I'm gonna do this. Nope, I don't care about that. I'm gonna do this. Yeah, it's really. Trine is like a flow. One of my other favorite astrologers, Jason Hawley, he says no one ends up. He's a therapist. He says no one ends up on my couch because of a trine. That's the squares and the oppositions and the quincunxes, but trines are some of the gifts. And then there's the sextile, which is another angle, 60 degrees. So let's just look at Cher again for a moment. And again, there's no quiz. We're just trying to kind of feel into this, get the 101 on the chart. Um, she's got a blue line from Mercury to her moon. She's got a green line from her moon to Uranus. She's got a red line. So it's basically, these are just, all these lines are talking about these particular angles, what degree apart is and some of them aren't talking to each other at all, right? So what degree is this, her Mercury, the way she's going to talk and think and what she's going to be drawn to listening and using her voice for is in a very strong flow to her moon. Okay. Her moon is in a strong square to um, the wounded healer and Jupiter. So we don't need to know all of those things right this minute in order to just take in, the moon is talking to Saturn. There's a line between them. It's an opposition. Okay. Now, I'm going to tie it all together. We're back to the transit slides. So when astrologers are giving you the weather forecast, what they're doing is they're sometimes talking about the relationship between the planets in the sky right now. So, for example, when I did these slides, Neptune and Saturn were in what's called a, remember, conjunction, energies together. What is Saturn? Wants to strategize, create limits so that we can get things done. What is Neptune? The dreamer, the dissolver, the, illusionist. So it's like, what? They're blending their energies. So it could be like strategizing your dreams, the disillusion of a structure. There's lots and lots of things that can be said with that. So when people are saying this transit is happening, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about how these planets are moving in and out of relationship to each other within these particular angles. I mean, astrology is 2000 plus years old. These guys would be looking up and then they'd write down like when this happens then that happens, when this happens then that happens, like we're observing this and we're down here we're observing that statistics. It's bananas, like it's so miraculous that they figured all this out, and then we're just dreaming it forward now by continuing to say when this happens it's predictable that there's this type of energy that we're working with. We're not saying, and if astrologers are saying this is going to happen, I don't know about that. This is a predictable energy. These are some ideas that are probably going to come up. This is some things that you may end up having to kind of think about, work with, push up against, bump up against, throw a fit about, whatever it is. So, on this day, those two guys had come together. It was a very major start of a new era. We'll talk about that more. But that was basically a transiting Saturn and transiting Neptune had come together. Now, if you were born at this time, you're not watching this because you're a baby, but basically, this would be your natal chart. And that would be some of the energy that you would be working with for this life. Super cool, right? Hopefully. Um, so the transits or the activations are what we're gonna that was all preview to get into this. So here's my natal chart. This is where the planets were when I was born. And here's the transits in the sky. So when I'm reading someone's natal chart, doing a reading with them, I will say, when was your birthday? What time were you born and where? And then my amazing astrology software. I mean, again, like these guys used to do it by hand. I get to just plug it into my computer. Feel so lucky. But I'll know, I'll be able to say, okay, when you were born, the sun was up here, it was in the sign of Taurus, or the sun was below the horizon, it was in the sign of Scorpio, or whatever. And this is where the moon was. And these are some of the relationships that are happening between these archetypal energies. Then we look at where the transits are in the sky. And then we can say, so here's my natal chart on the inside, and here's where the planets are in the sky. So when those planets are making an angle or a conjunction to my planets, it's predictable that there will be certain energies at play that I will get to work with. And that is what an astrology reading can do for you. It's also, I'm also going to say that, knowing more about your own natal chart, you can start to recognize, like, oh my gosh, something is pushing this archetype that I have inside of me. This is the last slide, and then I want to just take a couple minutes and show you this in real time with my software because we have that technology. We can do it. This is from Carl Jung. Um, he basically was the founder of Jung, a massive line of psychology, right? And he was very into astrology, actually, which I think is amazing. But he says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. I just left this quote in. It's not exactly with transits, but I do think like knowing more about your own natal chart will help you And if you are interested in starting to learn how to track transits, um, it will feel like you have more agency. That is, I want to just go on that. I want to pull that thread just for a second, and then I'm going to wrap this up. But astrology doesn't tell us what to do. Mm-mm. And um, I think that when we know more about the way we're wired, the things we're made of, the things that exist, the archetypal energies that exist strongly in us, and then we start hearing about these transits, then we're like, oh yeah, that's tricky for me. I know how I can. The reason why I like it is then I'm like, oh, there's a tricky time coming. It's not telling me what to do. It's just saying, hey, you want to move a little slower? You want to do things a little differently? Do you want to kind of it's like reading the wind currents when you're out in your sailboat, like, oh, this big one's coming along. It's going to feel this is an opportunity. Throw your sail up, catch that breeze. Or there's a big storm coming. Pull the sail back in, get close to the ballast. Hunker down. The storm's coming in. You can do whatever you want. You can steer straight into the storm if you want to, but it kind of feels like you're less at the mercy of some of the things that are inevitably happening. One reason 136 why I love astrology. Let's show you on this. So today is March 4th, 2026, the day that I created the transits video. And right this minute in Ketchum, Idaho, it's Leo rising. Okay. And the planets in the sky are all in a jumble over here with the moon being on the opposite. We just got past a very big full moon a couple days ago. The moon moves very quickly. So we have a Pisces sun sitting by Mercury, who's retrograde. So it's a little interesting that I think, oh, I'm going to make a video with Mercury retrograde. I sure am. Um, so we don't need to know all those. I can talk more about those another time, but let me just show you, like, let's go back to that eclipse 2 days ago. Watch this. So we can predict when the actual eclipse happened. Let me just cheat. This software is amazing. Oh, I'm in the wrong date. Hold up. This software is amazing. It's human error here. Do it manually. So the sun is here at 12 degrees, and a full moon, my friends, is when the moon is exactly opposite the sun. So it was right around yeah, it was right around 3:45 a.m. A couple days ago, March 3rd. So when people were talking about, oh my goodness, it was a full lunar eclipse, partly because the nodes of the moon were here. Don't worry about the technicalities of the nodes and all that. That just is part of what makes it an eclipse instead of just a regular full moon. But that's where these planets were transiting there. Okay, the moon was in Virgo, sun was in Pisces, Mercury, Venus, Neptune, and Saturn were in Aries. And that is the transits. Now, here's how this looks in real time. Forgive me for one moment while I just tweak around in here for a sec. Dun, dun, dun. So we'll just use me as an example. But when that full moon happened, the moon was in my first house, and it was pretty close to my rising. My rising is at 8 degrees of Virgo. When I was born, it was Virgo rising. And that means the sun was over here in the opposite house of important relationships with all these guys. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about transits. Like, that's how we can start to personalize it. This is what they look like on their own, which is great because you can kind of be like, okay, I'm going to work with the Virgo, the particular, the attention to detail, and the paradoxical energy of trust and merging and dissolving, Pisces. Like that axis, I could do multiple videos on just talking about that paradoxical axis of energy that we were all swimming in for a couple of days, big time. But how much more powerful it is when we can see where that's transiting my personal chart. So that is what, and it's complicated, but also not, right? It's just make it smaller, make it simpler, and just you don't have to know or remember. There's not going to be a quiz, but just kind of like, oh, okay. So when I get someone to read my chart, they're actually looking at where the planets were when I was born. And you can actually at your chart, ask your astrologer to let you look, and you can actually visualize like where it was in the sky. And we start to befriend and become more in tune with these energies. I just think it's super interesting. So speaking of, if you need, I'm here. Well, I do readings, obviously. So yeah, hello, if you want to sign up for one. However, if you want to just jump on my free um, list, I have a WhatsApp list, and I just talk about the transits. And I say things like, okay, we had a full moon lunar eclipse, and we were really talking about Virgo and Pisces. Wants to be particular and wants to have things a certain way, and Pisces wants us to trust. So, in practical terms, here's some ideas on working with that. Boom. Helpful, not helpful, busy, don't listen to it. Feeling a little like, what's going on? Listen to it. It's free. You can sign up from my website, jump on the email list. You'll hear about more offerings and when these videos come out. Okay, that's the transits video. I'll see you at the next video or on the text list, or I'll pull your chart. Angela Freebird, the Primal Hummingbird, over and out.